Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes, from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tanisha Wood. Today is like hot, like crazy outside. Like I literally said to myself, I'm sweating like a whore in church. And I'm like, do whores in church normally sweat? Like
we do. Down south, we do. Okay, we melt.
God knows. So today I have one of my all-time favorite guests with me, Ondrea. She was on season 1, episode 52.
Hello, hello, hello.
How you doing, Ondrea?
I am wonderful. How are you?
So that was like, what, 3 years ago that you came on last?
Yeah, I feel like it was when I first moved to New York.
Yeah,
so I've been here
yeah.
5 years now.
Oh my God. Yeah, this has been a really long time. Crazy. So I hadn't caught up with Ondrea in a while. You know, you all know I was in Dallas. I had to do that whole thing and move around the country for a while. So I'm back in New York for the summer. So I was catching up with her. And Ondrea was like, oh, I got a boo now. And I was like, oh, really? Like, tell me more.
I got a whole boo.
As of when? Last week? Like, okay. So I really need you to tell this story. And here's why I think it's important. So I think that a lot of us women, we have this way of planning things, right?
No,
like
totally true.
You meet a person and then you are like, well, this is my person and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And you sort of don't leave room for the unexpected.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there might be a guy that slides in your DM in the interim and you're like, okay, whatever, because I'm focused on this thing and this plan. And I think that the reason that this person came into your life is because you were in a space where you were able to be open.
Oh, I was totally in that space because I had just gotten out of a quote unquote situationship. I had to separate myself and think about what I wanted. And so in that moment, it was more along the lines of, all right, everything I've planned, everything I thought I wanted, none of this is working.
So what was happening in the situationship?
The situationship, and the reason I say it was a situationship is because it was a relationship without the relationship title, I guess, so to speak. So we were doing everything boyfriend and girlfriend wise, even talking about co-parenting with a child. No, like so
Let's
sincere.
have this child together, but we're just talking.
Right. Well, my thought process was, you have to choose one or the other when it comes to co-parenting. Like you're either a co-parent or you're in a relationship. Like you can't do both because it gets all muddy and murky. And I think that's where we went wrong.
Wait, what? Hold on. I think I heard you wrong. So you're saying you can't be both a parent and in a relationship? Like you have to pick one?
You can, but you need to set that standard before. Like you have to decide before there's a child if you're in a relationship or not. You can't be in a situationship.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And then be like, let's have a baby.
Right.
No. Because at that point, you need to sit down and decide, are we going to be in a relationship or are we just legit going to be people that co-parent? So I think that was our issue. We kept going back and forth and left and right. And it was just like, okay, this is too freaking exhausting.
Why were you guys even at a point where you were talking about kids if you hadn't even
I'm
decided?
35 and my ovaries are taken. And because in the grand scheme of things, like the guy would have made an awesome father. Like co-parenting wise, we would have been great. It's just when you added a relationship aspect, we were not great. But we kept trying to do like a relationship thing, not a relationship thing, whatever. So by the time this ends, I am just over life.
How long was that situationship?
About like a year and some change.
Damn.
Right. And it got to the point, like, he took me to meet his family. And I think that was like my breaking point, because I was like, why the heck am I meeting your family? And like, why is your family looking at me like I'm your girlfriend, but yet you can't call me your girlfriend? I was like, this is just too much. Like, I felt then that I was in like a Love and Hip Hop episode. We always watch these TV shows and, these women are like standing for these men and you're just like, girl, he ain't even claiming you. He's in the club. And I was like, wait a minute. Am I being one of those women? Like, you just, like, for the sake of having a child, like, am I doing this? So it was just like, I gotta go.
Did you ever call him out on it? Or like, did you have conversations where you're like, hey, I would desire us to be in a relationship exclusively with this title?
Child, I talked till I lost my vocabulary. Like, there could have been no more words in the English dictionary. Heck, I probably talked to him in Spanish about it. Might have thrown it.
Hola, papi. That's all the Spanish I know, sadly.
But so there wasn't there was not an opportunity for him to figure out what the heck he wanted to do.
But what was his reason? Like, why not?
I think he was just legit at one of those stages where he didn't know if he was ready to settle down. I think it was too big of a leap for him to make. All I know is it led me to this point where I was just like, screw all y'all. I need to figure out what I want to do, because it made me realize, like, I should know upfront what I want going into a relationship. A lot of times we as women are so quick to adapt and go with the flow. Not necessarily the fear out of being alone, but out of the fear out of missing out on somebody that's great. So it's just like...
Man FOMO.
Man FOMO. There you go. It's like you don't want to date somebody and pass up on them because you weren't flexible. Nobody wants to be the girl that you date a man, you toss him away, and the next thing you know, he's making the next girl exceptionally happy.
But the thing about that man, because I hear so many stories where there's a woman and she's with or in a situationship with a man for years and years, or they're together and he's not asking her to marry him, and then they break up. 3 months later, he meets somebody. 5 months after that, he's married. And she's like, but all this time, you said that you didn't want to get married. Exactly. And now look at you, you're married. And it's like, oh, no. He didn't want to marry you.
Exactly. So I think that's also like, that's a realization that I had to have. And it also took me a minute to realize that had no bearing on me. It didn't mean I wasn't great. It didn't mean I wasn't fabulous. It didn't mean that I wasn't worth, having everything that I wanted. That's his own issue. That's something he has to deal with. That's something that he's going to have an issue with, no matter the girl. The next girl could be anything and everything as well, and he still might not want to marry her. He still might, that's not my issue. I did not want to be the girl that rolled with the punches anymore. I wanted to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm looking for in a relationship. You're either going to give me that, or there's no point in us being in a relationship.
So what was that process of digging inwards?
I think it was more so along the lines of training my mind not to second guess myself. I make decisions all the time, rapid decisions without thinking, and it always works out. But when it comes to relationships, I second guess myself. I think a lot of times when people hear that you second guess yourself, they think it's a lack of confidence. It's not a lack of confidence. I know I'm great. You can't tell me that I'm not great. It's just more of the time where you look at it and you're like, wait a minute, am I too confident? Am I jumping into this without thinking, or am I ambushing a person? Am I bulldozing a person, in what I want? So for me, the process was just spending time by myself and essentially, as cliche as it sounds, pulling out a piece of paper and writing down what I wanted. And when I would go on a date with a guy and I'd be like, okay, girl, you wrote this paper down. This is all you wanted. Is he that? No? All right, then move along.
Let me just check my list. I'm out on a date here. Number 1, check. Number 2, ooh, you ain't gonna make it, sir.
As sad as it sounds and as childish as it sounds, that's what it took for me. Because like I said, I was always one of those people where, I would have my list in the back of my head, but it was like,
I can bend that one.
I can bend this.
That one's not as important.
That. And then, 5 years later, you look at yourself down the road and you're like, dang, I bended everything. Like,
This always brings me back to my favorite Sonya Wood quote. Shout out to Mom. She always says, be with a man that loves you more than you love him. And part of that is a man that loves you more than you love him will bend for you.
Yeah.
He will say, this might not be, and not talking about you, but like things you want.
Yeah.
He might be like, I don't necessarily do that, but like, yeah, I love her and she wants it. So like she gets it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how it should be.
And at no point am I saying you don't have to
Compromise.
A relationship is a lot of compromise. But I feel like if you have your no-go items, you don't compromise on no-go items.
100%.
So it's like you have to sit down. I mean, I say no-go items because that's what we call it in the airline industry. Like these are items that you cannot take off without. So I'm
Ondrea is a flight attendant for those of you that don't remember.
So I'm like,
don't ask her for her buddy pass. She already has given it out.
We do not have those. Okay. We just don't have them. So yeah, these are items that I am not getting into a relationship without or with.
So what was on that list that you wrote? And then also what were your no-go items?
So the list was just strictly my no-go items. I realized that I needed to quit adding things that really restricted myself. So I was just like, all right, no-go item number 1. He has to want kids. Just because I want kids, I'm not doing the whole I might want kids later. I don't, no. Because
that sounds like it might be a divorce over this argument later.
Exactly. We're not going to end up on Snapped. I'm not going to be the girl smiling in my mugshot because I had to stab you because you changed your mind later. No.
You said!
Right. As I have no job, but I have a great looking mugshot. Like, no, we're not doing that.
I love Snapped, by the way.
Oh my God, it's my favorite show.
I could sit, some Saturdays, I'll sit and I'll just watch Investigation ID all day. And I'm like, what? Am I a psycho? Because why do I love this so much?
So I'm not even
And I'd be looking at Chris like, hey, don't take warning. You see the stuff I watch.
So
watch
they
out.
have the app, right? The investigation.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm all about the app.
like all day on that app. Like I have learned some things on how to kill a person that I'm like,
I know how to kill you. Will cover it up.
Right? Should they really be airing this? Like,
should you tell people that might snap these kinds of things?
Succinylcholine kills people with no side effects, and it's not tested. Oh my God! like I feel like I should not know that, but I knew that as a kid, apparently, from watching Investigation Discovery. So now I'm like, imagine what I could do with this information as an adult.
Don't mess with Ondrea.
Yeah, no. So that was one of them. Communication. I wanted there to be no question of what we were doing. There was none of this. Are we together? Are we not together? Well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? No. You're either saying, this is my girlfriend. We're working towards marriage. That was another thing. Wanted to be married. I'm not doing this. I mean, listen, no shame to women that do it. Each person has their own different thing going on in their relationship. But I am not one of those people where we're going to sit here for 5, 6, 7, 10 years and be like, God dang it, we just can't quite make it to the altar.
Something keeps coming up.
No. You are scheduling that. Like, this is a goal that we both have. We both know we're working towards it. We're making it there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. No.
So is that something you would ask about on a date? Like, how would you determine that on like a first or second date?
So to be honest, that was kind of where I had the hiccup, because I was like, how do you go about telling somebody all of this on the first date without looking crazy?
Here's the thing though. If somebody thinks it's crazy, then that's not your person.
And that's what I was thinking.
That's not your person.
That's what I was thinking. So it took me a minute. I think that took like an extra 2 weeks on my stay in the house, Netflix, and get to know me journey, because it was kind of like, okay, so I've written this list. How, like, what do I do? Show up to a man and be like, here's my list. Can you meet these requirements or not? Like,
hold on. Before the date, you send out like a Google form. Hey, if you could just fill this out, just like to save both of us time. No big deal.
I don't want to waste time. I'm turning 35. It's totes fine. It's not like a ticking clock thing. It's just me being anal retentive. It's fine.
Somebody out there just got an idea. They're like, I will just send out Google Forms. Don't do that.
I mean, you really can though. It is a new day and age. Technology is helping us. I mean, so those were pretty much the 3 things that were on my list. And
so marriage, kids, and communication.
I let go of the whole 6 foot requirement.
You got to let go of the 6'4", 6-pack, and 6-figure thing.
I let it all go. I was like, these are just the 3 things that I need. And my aunt was like, you're not going to be able to handle that. And I was like, yes, I can. I can do it.
So could you, let's be realistic, you're what, 5'10"?
Yeah.
So if a man came to you that was, in that time, 5'5", 5'6", and was like, hi, Ondrea, I just want to marry you. Here's everything I want out of life. Love children. In fact, I mentor 7 of them. Here I am.
I was honestly open to it. I was so open to it.
Ondrea, you were not dating no 5'5" man.
I actually was. Okay. First off, wait, not 5'5". Wait, do we have to go 5'5"?
I'm 5'5". That's just usually that's where I view the world from.
Well, I was okay with me being taller than him in heels, or like, I mean, but
hold on, you see how in heels, not like if he's wearing flats, I'm wearing flats.
And
he
that
needs
was
to be
okay
5'10".
too. I was legit open, Tanisha. God dang it,
Okay,
I was open.
okay.
I was open. Okay. I was open like a 7-Eleven, 24 hours. Okay. I was open. I had spent, X amount of years saying, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. And that legit wasn't coming to me. That's not what I was getting. Or I was getting it and it was, not for me. Mm-hmm. It was for somebody else around the way. Like, girl, I don't know whose husband he's supposed to be, but he's somebody y'all. He's one of y'all. I gotta put him back.
This is somebody's son's man, not mine though.
Not mine. So I wrote those 3 things down, and I literally looked at those 3 things every day. Like, anytime a guy would ask me out, I would be like, okay, those 3 things, that's what you can base this off of, unless he's just super creeper. But I was like, that's what you can base this off of. That's it. Mm-hmm. Like, don't go into the fact that he's not tall enough, or he quote unquote doesn't make enough, or, no, girl, you're going down a rabbit hole. Go with that. So I went on a couple dates using this process, and I was like, this sucks. I was like, this sucks. Like, this legit just sucks. I'm bored. So then I was just like, I don't even think it's the fact that it's the list. Yes, that helps. I said, but it's the fact that I don't think I'm ready to date. And I think that's why it was boring. That was another realization.
That's a word.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think, okay, I have the idea of exactly what it is I need to be doing. I've been doing everything wrong. Let me just get back out there. When it's like, no, actually, you just need to spend time with you. And once you're good, you attract what's good for you.
Exactly. That was my lesson that I had to learn. Because in my thought process at the time is kind of like, okay, once you're over old dude, then you're ready to date. That might have worked out in the past, but it was not working this time. Because I was like, now I'm just sitting here basically being a foodie call. Like, going out, getting meals.
What are we eating tonight?
Right. Like, what are we eating tonight? Who are we eating it with? Like, so I was completely bored. So I then made the decision, I'm not dating. I'm going to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And then Mark came along.
Yes. Cue Mark.
I knew Mark from back home. We had met just like...
In Alabama.
In Alabama, yes.
Mama, Louisiana. Daddy, Alabama. Something like a Texas Bama.
I am a Texas Bama, though. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. I had met him once before, just like kind of in passing, like nothing big. It actually took me a minute to realize that we had met before. I was like, oh yeah, we did. My bad. I don't even think he remembers, to be honest. But it all started when one of our mutual friends posted something on Facebook. Apparently, I was a little passionate about it, and he was a little passionate about it, and we got to arguing.
What was the topic?
To be honest, I don't remember. I think it was something more along the lines of feminism and like the Black community. Don't ask me why I felt the need to argue this on Facebook. I don't know. I was in my Eat, Pray, Love bored moment, okay? Like,
the world cannot think like this. Let me just type and let them know they need to change their thoughts.
I got to fix you people. And so we got to arguing that way, and he sent me a friend request, and I was like, oh, Oh, you gonna send me a friend request? Oh, okay. Well, let me just click accept because you're gonna see how fabulous I am with my right answer because you are wrong. At first, nothing really came of the friend request. I think we were friends for about a year.
So the arguing in the comments happened. He sent you a friend request, and then you guys were just,
just like the random Facebook friend that likes your photo, but you never really talk to them. Yeah,
got it.
And one day he sent me a message, and it was weird because like I tell him all the time. He didn't approach me as in, I want to ask you out. Mm-hmm. You always get those random Facebook messages that are like, oh, you're so cute.
Hey, girl.
You want to be my baby mama? You want to be my queen? Let's get married on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. You get those type of messages. He was just like, how are you doing? And I was like, oh, I guess I'll respond. Like, I'm fine. Is this a trick question? Like, what is your motive? And
what's your angle here?
What are you trying to accomplish here? And I think it was the fact that he just kept the conversation easy. It was not, I'm trying to take you out. I'm not trying to, it was just legit, how are you doing? How are things going? Blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, okay.
Pause. I need to do a man tip. Oh, I just came up with that on the spot. I'm doing man tips now.
You're welcome.
Okay, this is a tip. When sliding into somebody's DM, don't be so aggressive.
Creeper.
Don't be, hey, that was a sexy photo you posted. That's not attractive. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes to be thought of in that way. But if you have genuine concern for somebody, that will be recognized and paid attention to. So I get DMs that are like, hey, that's a sexy photo. Hey, we should. Hey. And I'm like, no. But if somebody really comes at me and was just like, hey, I just thought of you and wanted to see how your day was going, I would respond.
And that's legit how it was. It was just a genuine concern for how I was doing. At first, I had to run back to my profile and be like, what the heck did I post that would make this man think I'm crazy over here?
What did I say?
What did I do? But so it got to the point where we would just communicate back and forth, check on each other during the day. And I think one of the questions that really that he asked me that piqued my interest, he was like, what are you working on right now? And I was like, what do you mean, what am I working on? I'm about to fly somewhere. I ain't working on nothing but trying not to kill people. That's all I got for you right now. But he was like, no. Goal-wise, he was like, what are you working on to get your goal? And I was like, oh. And I realized as time went on, I was actually talking to Mark every freaking day. Every day I was talking to Mark. And Mark was giving me some kind of advice, hey, I saw this article that you mentioned about your goal. Let me forward it to you. And I'm like, why you
That's
being
a good
so
man.
Nice?
I like a man that is concerned with my life. I like to say I like a man that's a little obsessed with me.
Yeah,
in terms of what's happening in your life. Let me help you. Let me show you another thing. Let me do this. Let me do that. It's not about their needs, but it's really about forwarding my life. I like that. That means a lot to me.
I do too. And so when he put his number in there, I didn't even think of, I like to say he bamboozled me because I wasn't even thinking in terms of dating. I was legit thinking of, oh my God, Mark is such a nice person and he's so interesting to talk to and I can seriously bounce ideas off of him. And at the state that I was in, my whole eat, pray, love moment, I'm like, I need somebody to bounce some ideas off of because homegirl is here about to get a cat. I'm about 2 steps away from a cat and adoption.
Do not get a cat.
I'm allergic, girl. Okay, that should tell you.
I was going to say, same. I will never come to your house.
I have to carry an EpiPen because of cats. Okay, so that should tell you something. And so when he slid, his phone number, I honestly didn't even hesitate to message him and be like, And so from there we went to phone call and we would literally talk all day, every day. I'm surprised Mark had a job. It wasn't until later that I thought, Mark, you got a job?
What do you do?
Right. Because you're always on the phone with me. But it was just, that was exactly what I needed at that moment. And I think he helped me realize a lot of the missing pieces that I was racking my brain over, trying to figure out, what do I want to do? I'm at this crossroads. What do I see myself doing with my life long term? What the heck am I supposed to do in terms of relationship? Am I going to be okay if I just decide I don't want another relationship? I had all these questions and it seemed like Mark was just here dishing out answers like they were on sale at the dollar store. Like,
here you go. Here you
right.
go. Here you go.
So that definitely threw me for a loop. And then when it got to a point, I think there was like maybe a day where I didn't really hear from him. And then I was like, well, where Mark? Why?
Where'd you go?
Why Mark ain't here? And that was when I realized I actually really, really liked Mark.
Yep.
So we both kind of had this conversation of like.
So how long into, I guess, the everyday talking and the back and forth was it until you realized like, oh my gosh, I like him like that?
Okay, so we cannot pinpoint a timeline. We have no timeline. I went back to like the first Facebook message, and that really didn't help us because that was just like, hey, how are you doing? So like all together, I think it's been like maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 months, but we just start ours from our first date. For anniversary purposes, just so he can remember and I can remember, we just picked the date of our first date and we're like, this is what it is.
They had a hell of a first date.
We did. Mark asked me what I wanted to do for my first date, and I decided to go balls to the wall because I was like, if he's serious, he'll make this work.
Yep.
If he's not serious, he'll go by the wayside. And so one of my things is if we cannot travel together, there's no point in us being in a relationship. Travel is too big of a part of my life. So when he said, where do you want to go on your first date? I said, Cuba.
Havana.
And I think I kind of said it with like holding my breath, waiting on him to be like, oh, sorry, no.
I'm really booked this month.
I'm booked for the rest of my life. Or like, I was thinking maybe, Carrabba Grill around the corner. But so it took him a minute to respond to my text message. And then he said, okay. And I was like, what? I sat there probably for like the rest of the day reading that text message, even though it was just okay. Like, I was trying to interpret.
Hey girl, can you read this text and just make sure it says what I think it says? Does this say okay to you as well? I just wanted to make sure we both read okay.
I was not going to call in reinforcements for that text message because I felt like had I called you or had I called anybody else, you guys would have been like, girl, it says okay. What is the issue? Like, I don't understand. So I legit sat there and I was just like, okay. So then my next thing was like, okay, I'm just gonna see like what he does in terms of planning this. Cause it's easy for somebody to send back.
Okay. And then it sits there forever and it's like, oh, we're not in Cuba. So
right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, no, Mark kept calling every day. We kept talking every day. And like I said, I was not bringing up Cuba. I was just like, all right. And
I like that you left it in his court. That's a good test.
Because at the end of the day, I thought of it in terms of, I know, what I want. This is something that he has to decide if he feels this is what he wants. Mm-hmm. And so then he was like, all right. I think it was like maybe a week and a half later, he texted me and he was like, are you good with these dates?
Love it. Love it. Man tip number 2, plan things. Don't just say things, like put action behind it. So, hey, we should get to know each other. We should meet up. Great. The next message I get from you should be, how's this date? How's this time? How's this place? Send me options, but it doesn't feel genuine unless there's some action behind it. So good job, Mark. That was man tip 2.
Mark did that. He sent me the dates and I was just like, I don't care about the dates. Let's go.
Anytime.
My schedule is wide open. I'll call in sick. That was my whole thought process. Because to be honest, Cuba has been on my bucket list since I was a kid. So I was just super geeked. And then it was like, now I'm super geeked because Mark is just actually going along with this crap. So then, the next voice comes in my head. Well, it's easy to pick dates. We got to actually book travel. We got to
book a flight, book an Airbnb.
We got to book Airbnb. Like, this is some process. I know Mark's like, don't worry about it. I got it. This is the Airbnb. He sent me 3 options and he was like, 1, 2, 3, tell me which one you want. And that's the one I'm going with. And I'm like, well, are you going to do it now? You need an answer? He's like, I need an answer now. I was like,
I love it.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.
I like a man with a plan.
Yeah, no. Mark is a planner. He is a totes planner. We finally, I think after this, like after the whole planning of Cuba, I felt comfortable enough to bring up my list.
So, marriage, kids, communication, where you at?
That's pretty much how the conversation went. And it was just like, check, check, check. And I was like, all right, which I knew he had the communication part because there was no stone left unturned in terms of things that we had talked about. Because like I said, we were talking all day, every day.
I actually like the idea or like the fact that you guys weren't in the same place because I think that gives such an opportunity to actually communicate.
It did.
Like when I was getting to know Chris, I feel like it's such a blessing that I was away and we actually couldn't see each other because it forced us. Like, not like we didn't want to, but like our communication was like, we talk about everything and you really get to know a person versus just like, I'm seeing you and, we'll go out to dinner.
I know more about Mark and him living, so far away versus like what I knew about men that I dated that lived here in New York.
Yep.
I am more comfortable telling him probably things that I should never tell the man that, I plan on being with.
I just took a poop. No.
Babe, my menstrual cup got stuck. Like, I'm not really sure.
Get it out. No.
Can you help? Send help. SOS. Like, but that's just like the conversations that we have. And he rolls with the punches. And it's refreshing because when the whole conversation came up of what are we doing? It is kind of a loaded question when you ask somebody that you're talking to, what are we doing?
With the right person,
it's
not actually a question. It's more just like we're already doing it.
Well, I give credit to Mark on that because Mark came out of the gate with, and I still read over the text message that he sent, I guess with his list. And I think it's so funny because you always think of yourself as being alone, but you never really think of the guy's perspective. So Mark was just like, hey, before we book all of this and I court you, that's his word. He's like, I'm courting you for marriage. He's like, these are my non-negotiables.
What were his?
So we kind of had a differing one.
Okay.
So
Tell me more.
Had a moment where we had a Mexican standoff.
Wait, what's a Mexican standoff?
Where you are just like, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me.
Why is that Mexican?
I don't really know. I feel like I need to go ask somebody.
Racist. Can it just be a standoff?
I don't know. I feel like
are there tacos there?
Hey, listen, if he would have showed up with tacos, all would have been forgiven. He has 2 kids, and he did not want any more kids. So this was my moment where I either became the complacent one where I said, that's fine, and kept talking, or I stuck to my list and said, okay, nice knowing you. So I put on my big girl britches and I said, okay, well, that doesn't work for me. So I gotta go.
Yep.
I gotta go. And I think right after I hit send, he called me. And he was just like, he's like, wait, what? And I was like, it's not a negotiable for me. I was like, I want children. This is why I want children. It's very, very important to me. And I was like, and I understand you not wanting children. I was like, please do not think that I'm trying to convince you that you need additional children. And I completely understand that. I said, but this is just where I'm coming from. And it actually opened up a conversation from us. And we were both able to express our sides. Mark's thing was Mark just didn't want the drama of another baby mama, essentially. Like, I think, and that was one of the things that I had also learned from my situationship. Men are terrified of like the crazy baby mama situation. they are making some serious life choices to avoid the crazy baby. I mean, I can't say I blame them, because let's be real, some of us are a little crazy out here. But
some of us are watching Investigation ID and Snapped all day.
Sucks and calling. But so that I understood. And we talked about it, and we kept talking about it. And after that, I got off that phone call, I was just like, all right, well, you know, I felt like I said what I needed to say. The ball was essentially back in his court, because I knew that was something that I was not going to compromise. And I think we went like maybe 3 or 4 days without talking.
No communication.
It was.
Well, how did that conversation end?
It didn't end badly. It ended where you were just kind of like, all right, we both said our piece. We might just need a moment to legit process this.
This was before Cuba?
This was before Cuba. Mm-hmm. We got all this out of the way before Cuba, because I was like, I don't want us to go to Cuba and then, you know,
not be on the same page, because then that's going to make for a miserable trip. And so we just left the conversation like, okay, we both said our piece. We kind of need a moment to think this through, you know, decide what we're going to do. And so I got off the phone thinking, all right, so this is pretty much probably going to be the end, because the man says he doesn't want kids. I know I want kids. Like, I don't see how we're compromising this. Like, because I'm not changing my mind. I only got 3 things on this list, and they're staying there.
Right. I'm like, I only got 3. I can't move anymore. And so I want to say it was like maybe 3 or 4 days later, and he called me back, and he was just like, I completely understand your logic. And my thought process is this. My mother died when I was young. Growing up, I didn't realize how much my mother did for me. I mean, you know, like most kids, you expected it. But growing up, my mother was now that I'm old enough and I was able to realize everything that she did for me, it made such this impact on me that I feel like I have to do it to a little person. Like, I just need to do it to a little person. Like, I'm the one that comes to your house. I'm like, I'll make your kid a sandwich because my mama used to do it for me. So that was it's not a negotiable for me. And so he called me back, and he was just like, you know, this is why, and he's like, this is why I love you. He was like, you have such a big heart. And he was like, you know, one of the big things that he said when he was looking for in dating is somebody that he could raise his kids with, because that was something that he was adamant about. He looks at it as, you know, the woman you date is essentially the stepmom to your kids. So you don't want somebody that you're dating that you can't bring around your kids. And so he was like, can we at least negotiate a number? And I was like, okay, we can negotiate a number. And I was like, he's like, 1. And I was like, 2.
No, you should have started, if you wanted to, Ondrea, you got to start with 3. You got to say 3.
Well, you know,
and then
I
get
think,
to 2.
To be honest, I think I said 4.
6.
I think I said 4. But so I'm
going to start with 6 and get him to 2.
Right. I was like, I'm like 4. And he's like,
You want 4 additional kids?
Well, listen, I had to start high. They tell you in
No, what I'm saying, do you actually want 4 additional? Like, he has 2 kids?
Yeah, he has 2.
And you wanted 4?
I always wanted 4 kids.
That's too many kids. I'm sorry. That's too many kids.
Let me live in my moment.
No,
but look at it.
Just too many kids.
It's perfect, because he has 2, and we officially settled on 2. So that's 4.
Okay, good. But
it's actually 1 and a possible that we settled on, because I figure I have to make it through the first childbirth. Like, I don't know how I'm going to like this. So I can't guarantee him 2.
Do you want 4 things coming out of you?
Listen, we're going to take it 1 at a time.
Yeah,
one at a time. Okay?
I'm a 1 kidder.
1 and doneer.
I'm like, you got a 5 and a 7. We'll do 1 more. I've only always wanted 1 kid ever anyway.
See, I've always just wanted 4. Like, that was my number. I think it was because my mom had 3, and like, I always felt bad because there was always one of us that was left out. So I was like, 4 is a good, even number. But that was like our first adult conversation in terms of if we could come to a compromise on something like that. Mark is more excited about children than I am. Like, don't let Mark fool you. He's probably going to kill me for this, but Mark has baby names picked out. Aww. Like, that's where we're at in life. Like, so Mark is more excited about a child than I am. Like, Mark could probably tell you my ovulation schedule better than I can. Like, so that was the conversation that we had. And I think after that conversation, I felt like a weight was lifted off of me because I was more proud of myself for sticking to my guns. Mm-hmm. Like, it had nothing to do with him. It was just, this is what I had said I was going to do, and I did it. So I was like, wow, all right. Yeah.
Go you.
I could do this. So that was that. And then we did Cuba.
So Cuba
yes.
is the first time that you guys are actually
like the first time
hanging out.
Yeah.
How many days was this trip?
4 days.
So I'm spending 4 days with you. I've never actually hung out with you in person.
No.
Okay. And how was that?
It was actually amazing. It was actually, so we talked a little bit prior to about the way we travel. Like, I always ask people when I go on vacation, I'm like, what type of traveler are you? Mm-hmm. Are you one of those where you're just trying to stay in the room the whole time? Are you trying to like get out? Or are you like me where you may or may not put yourself in some dangerous situations to get a great time? And so he was like, no, I'm going with the flow. And I was like, well, don't say that because I'm going to test every going with the flow bone you got. I really liked the idea of Cuba because you didn't have internet access. You didn't have cell phone access. So it was legit just us two for those 4 days. And I feel like it's a little bit easier sometimes to my thing then when we were going to Cuba is like, what if he's not the same person that he was, on the phone? So that was like my next fear hurdle that I had to jump over. And then I was like, what if all his pictures are like old pictures?
Wait, had you guys FaceTimed or anything though?
Okay. One of the things that I apparently did not write down was the fact that he needed to be an iPhone user. This fool is an Android user. Now I know.
Oh, those are the worst. You just use WhatsApp though, and it makes it easier.
I know.
Me myself, I didn't want to date an Android user, but I did, and we immediately started using WhatsApp, and now that's the only way that we communicate. Yeah. So it makes it a lot easier.
I know, and I need to just be like, Mark, download WhatsApp. But we had started in the text. You know what I'm saying?
You have to switch to WhatsApp. You won't even remember that it's an Android user once you're on WhatsApp.
Well, now my goal is to just convince him that he needs an iPhone.
You don't even.
And I'm slowly working on it.
Let him be him. So Cuba, there's no Wi-Fi. You guys,
no Wi-Fi.
You have to spend all this time just focused on each other. So what was happening?
Focused on each other. We woke up every morning with no plan. It was just like, what do you feel like doing today? It was just a lot of walking and wandering around the city, which was really nice. He's really big into art. He's a painter and things like that. So that was one of the things that I really wanted to do was make sure that he saw a lot of art, make sure, he was emerged in the art community. And then, of course, he loves cigars. So I was like, all right, we got to go to the cigar factory. So we didn't really have any plans. We just kind of went with the flow. But it was really nice because the communication still continued. Like, you would think when you're doing all of this walking and touristy crap that you're not really talking as much. Mm. No, we were still legit talking to each other. We were still going into detailed conversations and in-depth conversations with each other about where we wanted to go from here. And that's kind of how we decided, all right, Cuba's our starting point from here. And I think this was the first time he called me his girlfriend. It's like, oh.
Hey, girlfriend.
Right. So that's how we came up with our anniversary date, because it's legit the first day we arrived in Cuba. Yeah. So, yeah.
So then, was this the first time, it went down?
It was the first time it went down, which was, my next hurdle. I overthink things. So, once I saw that he looked the same, then it was okay, something's got to be wrong.
Don't go into the sabotage.
Well, that's the thing. So
something's got to be wrong here.
I was
he now wants kids. He communicates, and he wants to get married. And he looks like his photos. He's probably been watching Investigation ID.
We did make a joke about that because we were texting our family, and we're like, so this is who I'm with.
Here's the address.
Here's her phone number. I had to send my aunt his number. That was my next hurdle. I was like, okay. Bedroom. I was like, it has to be something wrong in the bedroom at this point. I don't know what else could be wrong, but there is nothing, so we're good.
So how did the trip end?
The trip pretty much ended with our whole lives planned out. So we have a 3-year plan.
Which I love. Tell us more about that.
The 3-year plan is essentially, it's not like set dates or anything like that. We just know, okay, we want to be married by this point. We want us to live together by this point. You know, we want to start building house at this point. But it was really nice to just have somebody that you could talk to about those things, because it makes the decision making that you do in your own life a lot easier. A lot of times when you date somebody and you're like, okay, it's serious, so what do I do?
What's next?
Yeah, like what's next? And the whole like living together situation came about because my lease was actually ending in July. And I was like, oh crap, I have to resign my lease. And Mark was like, oh, well, this will be the last time you renew your lease. I was like,
okay.
Can we, you know what? I'm not even going to be mad at that because New York rent is high. So that's fine with me. I always joke with him. I'm like, you know, are you going to tell me your plan? Because, you know, I need like step by step. Mark is like, just know this will happen by this will happen by this will happen by this. And I'm like, wow, there is really men out here who plan.
I don't know how Mark acted with the last woman or what his relationship was before he met you, but I honestly, truly believe that when a man meets the person that he actually wants to be with and actually wants to commit to, if he is a good man, he's on it. And he's making plans and he's thinking about the future. Like, this is how it is supposed to be. You know, if you meet a man and like the man you were talking about before, where it's a year and a half and it's like, well, what are we? Where is this going? That is not your person. No. And that is okay.
Hey, exactly.
Like, step away so you can meet your person and they can meet theirs.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I truly believe like this is how it is supposed to be. And let's not sabotage it when it gets there.
We actually talked about that because I had asked him, one of the questions that I had asked him was, so were you like this with every girl you dated? And I think part of my questioning for that was Mark had been married before. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, you know, also because this was totally new to me. I'm not used to dating guys who plan. I'm not used to dating guys that communicate. So I'm like, who gave him the playbook of what I needed? And is he just regurgitating it? Like, what is going on? Because like I said, I'm like queen saboteur here. And so we talked about it. And he goes, you know, he said, no. He said, actually, he's like, it's you. He was like, you make this easy. He's like, I know what I need to do to keep you in my life. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm working towards. And I'm just like, again, where are you reading these answers from?
Where's the book?
That was a conversation that we had. And I left that conversation thinking, okay, I can quit second guessing. I can quit wondering. I can quit basically being in my own way.
And just accept that the thing that I want is happening.
It's happening. Exactly. I had to kind of step out of my own way a little bit. That's another thing that I do credit Mark for, because Mark is he's always asking, like, do you need anything? Are you okay? Is there something that you need me to do? You know, what can I do for you?
What number man tip am I on?
I think 3.
Okay, man tip number 3. Check in constantly,
check in. Yeah.
Every day. It doesn't have to be anything grand. Just a simple question.
Makes
do
all the
you
difference.
need anything?
So now,
is there anything I can do for you?
Exactly. So now our running joke in the relationship is we always ask the person just about, not really every morning, either every morning or when you're just being extra needy. So we just stop and we're like, all right, do you need attention, or do you need Aisha Curry style attention?
You wrong for that. She wasn't wrong for the attention she needed. I'm just saying. She was fine for that.
She wasn't. That's a whole other topic. But that's how we know, you know, are you just having a moment, or do you need like this extra attention?
I love it.
And so that, you know, there are times where I respond and I'm like, I need Aisha Curry style attention. And he'll call me and he'll be like, girl, what you need today? Like, just what do you need?
I love it. I know there's a timeline happening. So like, what's next on this timeline?
So next on the timeline for us, the big thing is, what month are we in? July? Jesus. November. We're going to Egypt in November. And if all goes well, then, you know, we'll just keep keep going. But by this time next year, obviously, because my lease is up, I'm supposed to be in Alabama. So,
Mama Louise. No. The kids, have you met them? Are you meeting them soon? And how do you feel about that?
Okay, so the kids part makes me nervous because I feel like when you meet somebody's kids, that to me is more, I guess, more important than meeting like the parents to me. Because, you know, kids, you don't want to go in and out.
No.
You have to be consistent with kids. So no, I have not met the kids. It's something that we've talked about. His oldest daughter is aware of me, but it's not something that I'm trying to rush into. I want her to get used to the idea of me being there first.
Right.
Also being that, like, after my mom died, my dad was parading anybody and everybody through the house. And I think that was very traumatic for me and my siblings. So I am so fearful of the dynamic that we would have. And I just feel like I need the time in addition to her needing the time to get used to us being in this space. But I just want to make sure that it's something that everybody's cool with. It's something that everybody's ready for. But, you know, I got you to look at for that because you went through that.
I like to call myself the girlfriend stepmom.
You know, that's kind of, you know, yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to aim for.
Well, Ondrea, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
He seems amazing, and I cannot wait to meet him. And I love that you were open, and this happened at the perfect time for you. So
it did.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for being one of the favorite guests here on DRL.
Anytime.
And come back again. Tell us, give us an update.
I'll give you an invitation.
Tell us after come back after the moving in, then after the marriage, then after the first baby, and then let us know if there'll be a second. The possible.
The possible is when you just come on and you're like, so listen, not sure how, but it's here.
What had happened was, where can people reach out to you?
Instagram is probably the easiest. Only Ondrea, and then my first name is Ondrea, and then Facebook, Ondrea Wallace.
Awesome.
Yeah, you know, I'm around.
And you guys, please reach out to me at Tanisha Wood on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and let me know what you think of today's show. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.